So, Vijay, essentially what you're saying is that the intention is a noble one. We'll have to wait and watch for how that actually pans out. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, moving on, there's bad news for Paytm. The market regulator, SEBI, has sent a show-cause notice to Vijay Shekhar Sharma and the board of directors from 2021 over non-compliance with promoter classification norms during the IPO process. Now, Rishabh Bhatnagar joins us and has more details on this. Hi, Rishabh. Rishabh, take us through what SEBI has said in its show-cause notice and what could it potentially mean for Vijay Shekhar Sharma and the company?
Right. What we're learning is that this is a show-cause notice that has been sent to a few board of directors that were on the board of Paytm back in 2021, as well as the founder CEO, Vijay Shekhar Sharma. While we do not have access to the notice yet, but what we know is that there are certain entities that are in receipt of this notice, and this is now in pertaining to the non-compliance of the IPO classification norms. So the heart of this matter is that Vijay Shekhar Sharma was not classified as a promoter when he probably should have been. A leading advisory firm called IIAS has also pointed this issue out back in 2023. And the fact that Sharma's status during the IPO is under question. Now, this is another regulatory issue. As most of you would remember, back in January 2024 is when Paytm Payments Bank was pulled up by the RBI for a whole lot of issues, and thereby we've seen what that has done to Paytm stock. Now, what's interesting is that the BSE and the National Stock Exchange both have taken cognizance of this news, and Paytm's reply is expected to come out soon on this matter. And what we're also seeing is that this notice could make the path for Paytm's payment aggregator license even more difficult. It recently got the government's nod on whether it would be able to reapply for that payment aggregator license, but that seems unlikely given that there is another regulatory issue that has come up. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much for the moment, Rishabh, for joining us. And now we are joined by Mr. Sriram Subramaniam, MD and founder of InGovern. Mr. Subramaniam, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Now, Mr. Subramaniam, what is your view of what's happened? Of course, at the heart of the matter is whether Vijay Shekhar Sharma should be classified as a promoter or an employee while filing the IPO documents. So how do you see this and what do you see as its impact now?
Firstly, this IPO happened almost 3 years ago, and the RHP, that is the draft, would have been filed with SEBI, and the lawyers of the merchant bankers and other due diligence itself would have gone through the legal process of scrutinizing the classification, of scrutinizing the shareholding of various entities, including Vijay Shekhar Sharma. From at that time, the norms which were prevalent were any single entity holding more than 10% should be classified as promoter. Anyone holding below 10% should be classified as a non-promoter. And that's how Vijay Shekhar Sharma was classified as a non-promoter, because I think at that time he held less than 10%. But subsequently, one is SEBI right in now looking retrospectively 3 years back and seeing whether they only approved that IPO. So from that perspective, did they scrutinize the papers properly? So this brings to the question, can they look back and declassify now retrospectively? The entire issue again became as to whether when Paytm started issuing ESOPs, one of the this one was Vijay Shekhar Sharma itself. So to that extent, whether ESOPs should be issued, that's a second matter. But a third matter is SEBI itself has floated a discussion paper saying that they need to move, Indian markets need to move away from the definition of promoter to persons in control. So to that extent, I think the concept of promoter itself has outlived its usefulness. India is one of the few markets in the world to have this definition of promoter. So it's not clear as to what is the promoter role doing in that sense. And SEBI itself has been evolving its own definition. So to that extent, the thinking has been changing. So it would be interesting to see whether SEBI will now revisit what it only approved 3 years ago.
Right, absolutely. So, in a sense, this perhaps is an attempt by SEBI to hold directors responsible for more, for potential compliance issues. Now, as far as the company is concerned, this is sort of another setback to them in terms from the regulators as well. So, how do you see this going forward for them?
I wouldn't think this is as big a setback as the RBI action, for example. This, if anything, puts the spotlight on SEBI itself. SEBI approved the IPO prospectus, right? And at that time, the classification, if Paytm had incorrectly disclosed, that is a different thing. But Paytm has disclose all the data, or I would think as disclosed in the draft red herring prospectus correctly, and lawyers and other lawyers of the merchant bankers, etc., would have done the scrutiny of the classification. So to that extent, if SEBI has to censure Paytm, it also has to censure itself, because it has to pull up its own officers who gave the approval for the IPO then.
So you see this as quite the double-edged sword over there. Mr. Subramaniam, appreciate your joining us on the show. Thank you.
I think retrospectively it changes, right? I mean, they only approved it and now they can't go back and change it retrospectively.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast.